So I would like to, use this session to uh, break some barriers here, right? So when we get into things like cloud computing, Internet of Things, 5G, these are really becoming complex multidisciplinary areas. They require multidisciplinary expertise to come together. And that's what we're trying to attempt here with the CCICI. If you see on this slide, the names in bold are CCICI is a body of volunteers who are passionate about technology and who have come together to collaborate and enable cloud computing for India, as was mentioned by Viswanath during the introduction, my introduction. If you see the names on board, it represents, the board of governors of CCICI. Then members of our executive committee are there, and the last column is um, uh, the core team of the Internet of Things, IoT for Smart City task force that we have. So we have multiple other task forces and working groups. And what I'm going to share with you are thoughts and ideas to which all of these people have been party to contributing. So these are not my independent ideas. So we look at what is the opportunity and the problem statement of where cloud computing lies in the context of digital India, and what is a likely solution, and a framework in which hopefully you would also get enthused to participate. So is this visible? Okay. So how many of you have read the Digital India Vision document? Do you know that such a document exists? How many pages is that document? Huh? It's an 80-page document with a lot of good illustrations. So if you really write it like an academic document, it may shrink down to 40 pages, as you said. Right? There are a lot of very good illustrations. It's a very good vision document. And as people from academia, if you just read through it, it's a very readable document. It will in itself generate a lot of interesting ideas. So as this is structured, it is structured around, so the vision statement is, it's a program to transform India into a digitally empowered society and a knowledge economy. So it's about using technology, digital emphasis technology, right, to create a social or a transformation, a national level transformation in the way we live, work, and execute our day-to-day functions, right? That's what the vision is all about, permeating every aspect of our lives. And there are the three pillars, the three core vision statements that they have. Digital infrastructure as a utility to every citizen, right? And we'll allude on the utility part a little bit further in my talk. Governance and services on demand. So when Viswanath talked about the NIST definition, it's about getting things on demand, pay-per-use, on-demand usage of IT technology, right? And digital empowerment of citizens. So which means making it possible for people to use this, building capability, building competence for them to be able to use and engage with this new transformed digital world more effectively. Every strata of the society to be able to engage with it. And for this to happen, underlying the core technologies that are going to enable this transformation are really cloud computing at the backbone and Internet of Things as a solutioning and a delivery mechanism, creating end-to-end solutions in various aspects. So if you look at the document again, there are, they call those 9 pillars. If you look at the bottom 4, they are more on the hardware aspect of really creating the infrastructure to enable the digital transformation, and then all the services like e-governance, e-Kranti, information for all, IT jobs, early harvesting. So there are that's the other aspect of it. And alongside this, there are all these other initiatives that are happening, right? The Meghraj was the cloud computing policy that was put out by the government, by the Department of Electronics and IT. The digital locker concept about, creating a storage facility for all your electronic documents, creating a storage locker for every individual, so that all your documents are there and you don't have to carry paper versions of those. And associated with that, the Startup India and Make in India, which is enabling the environment, the business environment for this to happen. And then there is the Smart Cities project, right, which is actually going to take this to the last mile, to the citizens. Every city is so engaged, and there's a lot of money and the business community and the government decision makers are really coming together to enable the smart cities. And then the killer app, right? What demonetization has done. It is probably going to force all of us to go online. And if this killer app really works out, I think the digital transformation will really take a big leapfrog. And how many of you have heard about UPI? What is it? Can somebody give him the mic, please?
The unified payment interface.
Yeah.
So BHIM app is a kind of that.
The BHIM app. A lot of you have heard about the BHIM app. So you may not need a credit card anymore to make payments, right? You just walk into a shop along with your mobile phone, and you get identified by your fingerprint using the Aadhaar back end, and the shopkeeper sends a message which comes to your mobile phone that so much payment is due. You approve, and it goes to your bank and the payment is made. That's the vision of UPI, right? What a transformation. I don't think it's even happening in the US. And it's very secure, right? And it's extremely secure. So things like that. So we are leapfrogging and adopting technology to create a transformation that is India appropriate. That's what this is all about. In terms of business opportunity, I think you're more scientists, so this may not enthuse you as much, but money does, it does leave an imprint in our minds. So if you look at what happened in the phone business when wireless really happened, okay, there was a hockey stick curve. From $3 billion within 5 years, it rose to $35 billion revenue, right? Huge transformation. And something similar is being projected in IT, as IT enablement is happening. We are moving, so there's a projection about 56 billion, but that's a conservative projection of IT revenue that's going to happen in the next, 2020. If the hockey stick happens, this may be maybe 4x, 5x more, okay? And what about the component of cloud, right? So there are the traditional IT providers who say that cloud will be only a certain percentage, but then there are the McKinseys and the Gartners which say that 85 to 90% of the applications can be moved to the cloud. There's no reason why not, okay? So this 56 billion multiplied by a couple of X with and 80 to 90% of that is really what the cloud computing market of India represents, and that's huge. But then let's look at what are our challenges. So traditionally in India, we have been lagging behind in adoption of technology, right? Our whole system, when you go to the government or elsewhere, they are all used to adopting, even when it was wireless, when it was phone, 10 to 20 years behind when it was already been available in the rest of the world, is when we start adopting it here. So the mindset and our systems are all like that, right? Now that these new technologies are being opened up and we are trying to adopt them, we are used to taking technology which has been developed in a different context for a different need and a different parameters. So the vendors who have developed this technology, they come here and they try to sell it. They try to force fit it in our situation. Why do you think we have call drops? We have call drops because nobody envisioned the kind of load and the patterns of load that the network and the equipment will face, right? This equipment and this was not designed with Indian conditions in mind, okay? So there's a lot of force fitting of technology that happens, and unless we wake up and start defining specifications, requirements, standards, and influencing the ecosystem to our needs. This is the, from a vendor's, I've worked in the multinationals, that's the easiest thing for us to do, right? We have stuff lying and we would like to sell it. And make a case that it's the right solution. The other problem with new technology adoption, so cloud and IoT are new technologies, and to adopt them in our country we need, so they are moving, they are disruptive, they are moving at a very, advancement is happening at a very rapid pace. So much so that if you want to put an IoT system and you're looking at the power consumption using the current proven technologies of 5G or Wi-Fi or the existing networking technologies. Whereas if you go to some of the newer protocols and the newer devices that are just round the corner, your power consumption and cost efficiency and power efficiency may go down 10x. So we know that by the time these tenders come out and deployment happens will be a few years down the road. So how do we put in a process which embraces the new technology rather than gets locked into some older technology which is not effective and efficient for our purposes? So how do we create such a mechanism in adoption of new technology? And obviously the last mile solutions, the last mile as it exists in India, in different parts of India. So what's happening is, in this case, diversifying away from a little bit from cloud computing, or maybe even NKN. I think when you started NKN with technology that was available to where you have and where you've scaled, you've seen that you had to do it very differently, right? So similarly, the last mile, if you look at smart cities, what typically happens is they bring in a consultant, and a consultant hires a fresh MBA who goes and Googles, okay, smart city, he gets Barcelona. So he's building a plan for smart city Bhubaneswar, and he goes at Barcelona and he tries to force fit Barcelona into Bhubaneswar. It's not going to work, right? So our last mile in Tirupati versus Bangalore versus whatever Raipur or Jabalpur is very different, right? And we can't, and it has to be thought through differently as we are deploying these technologies. And then, but the decision makers, the administrators who are actually empowered with making these decisions, with passing the tenders and strategizing and building, enabling the deployments, are not really technologists, right? They have a feel for technology, they have a feel for maybe the application, but when we are talking about disruptive and transformational technology, them being able to see, so they go for their information from vendors. Vendors come and talk to them. But having a think tank of a vendor neutral body which talks about technology first and the possibilities of technology, we don't really have a good system in place. And not to say that other countries don't have it. They do have it, and that's why they've always been pushing the edges of technology. The government projects typically have been used to adopting new technology and defining requirements which don't even exist today, and forcing the ecosystem to develop technology. Whereas we are always used to the lagging model. We want to be very safe and very conservative in adopting new technology. And that's the mindset that has to change. And with these new technologies which are emerging, standardization is still happening. There is no standardization, okay? There is no reference architecture that we can just quickly take and adopt. We have to develop these for ourselves. And as I mentioned before, the vendors, the comfort zone of the vendors is to create vendor lock-in, and we'll dwell on this a little bit more. And in the past, there have been many examples. I don't know, I'm most familiar with the Cloud Enablement RFP, which was released maybe 2012-13 timeframe. Every state data center was asked to become cloud enabled, right? And a template of an RFP was developed at the center and sent to every state. But it was a very theoretical RFP. It was again based on cut, paste and Google, not on real POCs or experimentation that had been done by a body of experts and to develop this, right? So no vendor could really would bid to it. So there have been many such instances of RFPs being released with good intentions to adopt new technology, but the mechanism for us is not in place, right? Now we are on a new journey of empanelment of cloud service providers, and this is the next phase of cloud enablement which we are on, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So essentially, what I tried to highlight, I have only 5 more minutes? I thought I had 20 minutes. Okay, so I'll try to rush through this. So this approach that I highlighted, I mean, this is the challenge, right? This is the problem statement, as I said. So now what's the likely solution? How do we work through this? So coming from the telecom world, right, I grew up when the telecom revolution happened in India. Way back in the 80s, when we came back from the US, at that time there was a 6-year waiting list. There were less than 5 million subscribers, landline subscribers in the country, okay? And it used to take you 6 years to get a landline connection. And why was that? That was because there were 2 ways in which we were deploying this technology. Even though we were more than a decade late in adoption, I think the exchanges were, the digital exchange was developed in 72 in the US, and we were adopting it in the 80s. So we were buying technology from from AT&T or Nortel or others. And the other thing that we did was we did a transfer of technology from Alcatel and were manufacturing it in the ITI manufacturing plants, okay? And this technology was not designed for India, it didn't work in the Indian network. The other technology that we were buying, it was at a price point of what $1,000 per line costs, 20,000 rupees per line. And then lo and behold, CDOT was formed, and we designed our own technology. And what did we do? We designed it for Indian conditions. Number one, we value engineered it to bring down the cost about 4x, 5x, okay? We for the first time ever built an exchange, the rural exchange, which did not need an operator. And even at the central office, we made it a very easy to run man-machine interface, a very simple man-machine interface that low-skilled people could work on. And this required a lot of collaboration and innovation in various aspects, right? We thermal engineered it so that it could run without air conditioning. The first ever exchange in the world which ran without air conditioning. We had this concept of the conformal coating where these air-cooled exchanges could run in a dusty environment. Okay, otherwise they were always run in these clean rooms. So the operational costs were brought down drastically, while the capex itself was brought down through value engineering. Okay, and we were able to deploy 50 million lines of this technology in a short period. In less than a decade, so from 5 million we were able to bring, and then we created the concept of the STD booth. We tried coin phones, it didn't work. People used to thrust all kinds of stuff in it. So we did STD booth, and you could walk down and make a phone call, and we said that in a country like ours, maybe that's the right solution. Lo and behold, wireless happened, right? And the last mile problem of laying copper was solved. But unfortunately at that time, we didn't go and build but fortunately for us, Huawei had built telephone exchanges, or base station technology, which was at a price point which was 1/10 or 1/100th almost of what the landline exchanges used to be, right? 900 rupees, sub 900 rupees per line cost, from what was 20,000 rupees per line cost, right? And that has allowed us to scale. But what we innovated in that time was the business model of how Bharti and others have been able to scale and deploy this rapidly without having to own this equipment. We have architected the network to enable this scalability, right? So these are some of the things that that enabled this telecom revolution to happen. Can we learn from this and use it in the cloud computing context? Because interestingly, if you see, a situation is very similar. If we had less than 10 million landline technology, that's where we are with IT today. And our need was a 1 billion plus, right? if you look at IT enablement, the quality and the capacity that of basic connectivity that we have, we are probably where we were in the 80s in telecom. So the IT enablement problem, if wireless and what has happened, this telecom revolution has solved the communication problem, the IT enablement problem needs a different approach, and maybe cloud computing is the answer for that. So look, stepping back to the fundamentals of cloud computing, right? Cloud computing is a utility, IT as a utility. So what is the utility we are very familiar with? It's electricity. And how did this happen? So the bulb was, invented by Thomas Alva Edison, and to light the bulb as a replacement for the candles, he created the generator. So that was the killer app. Now when you wanted to light a house, you created light points where you could put multiple bulbs, and you created a centralized generator, right? And then when you wanted to create a whole city or a whole country, it became that much more complex, and it required distribution stations and generation stations, and hydroelectricity and nuclear electricity, and then the smart grid, which is now bidirectional, where you are generating and distributing over on the grid in both directions, right? So that's been the evolution of this utility. And that's exactly what is happening in the IT industry. With the personal computer, same as the bulb. You took your computer, it had the hard disk, it had everything was there built into one. And then when you took it to an enterprise level, you created the data center with the terminals being used by different people, but the data center in one centralized place. And now we are talking about the cloud, which is ubiquitous, available to everybody, everywhere, with devices of various horizons. So similar to electricity now, when we removed it, and all kinds of applications, the mixie, the oven, all kinds of applications started happening when, other than the bulb, same thing is happening now. There are all kinds of apps and all kinds of devices that you could be plugging into the cloud and doing things with, right? So that's the vision of cloud. And just imagine how, in order to do something like this, in order to create this transformation, you really need the research and innovation happening in academia, and the startups taking them up accelerating that into realizable products, the government providing the environment and the framework and the regulations and policy and the financial framework, and the industry finally creating sustainable solutions and building the entire delivery and infrastructure around it. Unless all of us are coming together and trying to solve this problem, breaking our silos. We are very used to being in our silos. Our industry, our academia, and our government don't know how to work with each other, don't know how to talk to each other. Okay? And it's, how many people from industry here? Maybe I'm the only one who spent 30 years in industry, right? So that's one barrier broken. That in the Indian National Science Congress, there's a person from industry who's giving a talk. Well, we can say NIC is also a quasi-industry, a government. So there's government, industry, and academia sitting on the platform. So that's one start in the right direction. Okay, so I'll skip some of these slides and just emphasize that, in order to do some of this, we need to architect, and there are different models of developing architecture. There's the open group model, there's the FEA model, which is used, and it's a iterative multi-step process, starting with the vision, the business requirements, then the information architecture, the technology architecture, and realizing it into a plan. So there's a whole process of building architectures. And even when you're doing cloud computing for NKN and all, I think, do we follow a proper formal architecture process involving the various stakeholders? I don't know, right? Then there is a very important need for interoperability and standards. Now let's take the example of internet, and these are some IEEE slides here. So before there was internet, when I started my career way back in 1985 in Bell Labs, there was no internet. So there was no email really, right? It was beginning to happen, and what did you do? You went and signed up with one of these companies, America Online, AT&T WorldNet, or CompuServe, or Prodigy. As a department, you went and signed up, and they would give you a facility where you could send mails amongst the group that you have signed up, like a WhatsApp group, right? So now you have a group where you can send mails to each other. okay? And soon they started giving facility, the different people who are signed up on their group can send messages across. So that was the, but they were all very proprietary, right? Lo and behold, what happened? The ARPANET happened. The ARPANET happened after, out of the need of the defense to be able to connect there. And out of the ARPANET came ITF. ITF was a bunch of technologists who, along with some basic blessings from the government and initial incubation support, were convinced that this networking technology could, business was being a barrier to realizing the potential of this technology, right? So they created standards and made internet happen. Connecting the world is what they talk about, right, at ITF. Same is the situation in, and lo and behold, what happened? You have all, now you don't know who are these service providers. So many service providers who plug in and the internet has happened. It's an open and standards driven platform. What is happening in cloud today? If you sign up with Azure, or you sign up with Google, or you sign up with Amazon, you're logged in, right? They are trying to, you know, there's a vendor lock-in. They are proprietary. Your application cannot seamlessly run on Google and Amazon. It's not possible today. So what you need is something similar, and IEEE is making an attempt under InterCloud. They are trying to define protocols which will be standardized and which will allow, but obviously the business groups are not very enthusiastic on it. I know the NIST interoperability forum, they say, the guys from Google just never turn up in our meetings, okay? So there are such barriers, but you know, India offers a greenfield opportunity. If we want cloud to happen, we need interoperability today. If every state government, every state data center wants to adopt cloud, it needs to interoperate. If every government department wants to move to cloud, and we need integrated single window services to be offered, we need interoperability of cloud today, right? If you want to do it at the right price point, and we are not setting up expensive disaster recovery centers like he talked about, we need interoperability today. So we are a green field, and we need to come together and solve these. Now, there are certain use cases that have been standardized on what interoperability will help you with. Performance for address load. I'll not go through these. I've tried to map them to the Indian requirements, but that's a separate talk. Maybe you'll invite me next year and I'll talk about that, okay? And obviously, in the field of standards also, there are a lot of competing standards. All the world over, every country is developing standards on different interfaces in the cloud architecture, okay? On the management interface, on the intercloud interface, and the security aspects, right? And for India, which one should we adopt? Why should we adopt? How should we influence them? There's a whole effort that we need to put in that. The whole different arena is about open source. So OpenStack is developing an open source version of cloud, similar to Linux, right? Before Linux, there was AT&T Unix, HP Unix, Solaris, all those operating systems. It took a while before Linux has become the de facto standard, and all these Unixes are dead, right? OpenStack has a similar vision, right? They're trying to create an open source. Is that the model? And there's an India Stack development going on in iSpert, right? And maybe that will be our de facto standard. So just 2 more minutes now, okay? So what we're doing in CCICI is, as I said again, we are a body of technical experts, people who are passionate about technology, who feel that this technology has huge potential for India and has to be done differently for India, has to be thought about differently. We have to think India appropriate, given where we are and given that we need to leapfrog, right? So with that vision, we are trying to bring people together from government, academia, industry, and professional bodies on a common platform to collaborate and drive innovation in a way that will, you know, here are some of the outputs that we are specifying. We are saying that, you know, things like standards and interoperability. We have a white paper, 200-page white paper on a roadmap for innovation, which is available on our website. We want to make pilot projects, research projects, capability building. We've done a lot of stuff in that direction. So a lot of information is on our website. You can look at it. We have been, we see this in two phases. Maybe I'll skip this slide, it requires a lot of explanation. These are some of our 2016 accomplishments, right from, for the first time NIST, the group in NIST which defined cloud, we invited them over. We ran a 3-day workshop. Along with, we have been collaborating with them for the last 3 years. We had IDA from Singapore. We had the Cloud Security Alliance guys. We had people from Korea also presenting on our conference. So we are trying to bring the global expertise, also, to understand what's happening globally. Our white paper is structured around what's happening globally, what's happening locally. We have a lot of instances of what CDAC has done and what DAITY and NIC also there. And then what are the unique challenges locally and how do we solve them? Where do we need to innovate? Okay, so we run our workshop also along the same grounds. The interoperability testbed proposal with 3 universities, IIIT Hyderabad, PES University, and IIT Madras, MNIT Jaipur, they are trying to put together an interoperability testbed. So there's lots of stuff happening. We have a roadmap and we are on our second phase of the journey. I'll skip all of this. Essentially move to our last slide, that if you got excited about this and you want to join us, you can just sign up on our website. But if you happen to be in an organization where you have to ask for permission, then if you are the one who seeks permission, don't get deterred if they tell you that you need approvals, blah, 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 blah. There are really no approvals required. And if you are the person who gives approvals, please don't discourage people. Encourage them to join such platforms and forums, because that's the only way we're going to solve these problems. Thank you.